The North Atlantic dawn broke cold and gray, a seamless gradient from ocean to cloud to sky. No horizon. Just endless gray. Captain Jake Razor Mitchell checked his instruments for the third time in 2 minutes. The F-15C Eagle responded to every subtle adjustment of his hand, alive beneath him, a machine built for one purpose, to own the sky. 33,000 feet below, the Norwegian sea churned in dark, freezing anonymity. Up here, the air was thin, the temperature minus 40 degrees Celsius, and the Cold War wasn't cold at all. Eagle 2, this is Eagle Lead. Maintain combat spread. Eyes open. Copy, lead. Lieutenant Chris Hawkeye Brennan's voice crackled through the radio from 2,000 feet to Mitchell's right. The two F-15s cut through the sky in loose formation, their gray-blue camouflage blending into the overcast like predators waiting in tall grass. This was 1987. The world balanced on a knife's edge. Ronald Reagan spoke of evil empires and strategic defense initiative. Mikhail Gorbachev whispered of glasnost and perestroika, but neither side blinked first. Every day, Soviet bombers tested NATO's resolve. Every day, American fighters scrambled to meet them. And every day, someone had to draw the line in the sky. Mitchell's mission brief had been routine: patrol the Norwegian coast, intercept any unidentified aircraft entering the NATO Air Defense Identification Zone, escort them away, return to base. Standard Cold War chess. But intelligence had been buzzing all morning. Soviet Northern Fleet activity was up. Signals intercepts suggested something bigger than the usual Tu-95 Bear bomber lumbering south for reconnaissance photographs and psychological effect. Razor, I've got intermittent radar contact. Bearing 040, range 80 miles. Multiple targets. Hawkeye's voice had an edge now. Mitchell's eyes dropped to his and /APG 63 radar display. The screen painted the world in shades of green, and there they were. Faint returns, flickering in and out as they flew low, using the Earth's curvature to mask their approach. Not the slow, predictable bombers. These were fast movers. Fighters. Eagle Lead to Bodo control. We have multiple bandits inbound, 040 at 80 miles. Request identification and rules of engagement. A pause. Static hissed. Then the Norwegian controller's voice, clipped and professional. Eagle Lead, bandits are confirmed Soviet intercept aircraft, likely MiG-29 Fulcrums out of Severomorsk. ROE remains. Escort and monitor. Do not engage unless fired upon. Repeat, do not engage first. Mitchell felt his jaw tighten. The rules were clear, but rules meant nothing when missiles started flying. The F-15 had never lost an air-to-air engagement. Not one, in over 100 kills spanning multiple conflicts. The Eagle was built to win. But the MiG-29 was the Soviet Union's answer, a sleek, deadly dogfighter flown by pilots who'd spent their entire careers training to kill Americans. Razor, they're coming in fast. 70 miles now. Multiple groups. I count. Jesus, Razor, I count 8 contacts. Maybe more. Mitchell's hands moved automatically, flipping switches, arming systems. The 4 AIM-9 Sidewinder heat seekers under his wings came alive, their seeker heads growling in his headset as they searched for infrared signatures. The 4 AIM-7 Sparrow radar-guided missiles hummed, ready to reach out and touch someone at 30 miles. Stay cool, Hawkeye. They're just testing us. They always do. But even as he said it, Mitchell knew this was different. 8 MiGs. Against 2 Eagles. The Soviets usually sent 1 or 2 fighters to shadow their bombers, a show of force, a reminder that they could reach out and touch NATO's northern flank any time they wanted. 8 fighters meant something else. It meant they wanted a fight. Eagle Lead, bandits now at 60 miles, closing at 600 knots. Altitude 10,000 feet and climbing. Mitchell pushed the throttles forward. The twin Pratt & Whitney F-100 engines roared, shoving 48,000 pounds of thrust through the Eagle's frame. The fighter leaped forward, the G-forces pressing Mitchell back into his seat. Speed, Mach 1.2. Altitude, 35,000 feet. Weapons, hot. The gray sky suddenly felt very small. Bodo control, we need backup. We're outnumbered 4-1. Eagle lead, nearest support is 20 minutes out. You are cleared to defend yourselves if threatened. Use your discretion. Discretion. That was NATO speak for you're on your own, try not to start World War III. Mitchell toggled his radio. Hawkeye, when they show up, we split vertical. I'll take high, you take low. Make them commit, then we reverse. Standard BFM. And Hawkeye. Yeah, Razor. Don't die today. Your wife just had a kid. A beat of silence. Then, copy that, lead. Let's send these bastards home. 50 miles. The radar contacts solidified, no longer flickering ghosts but hard, undeniable threats. Mitchell could see them now on his display, climbing aggressively, spreading into a wide formation. Classic Soviet tactics. Overwhelm with numbers, force the enemy into defensive maneuvers, exploit any mistake. But Mitchell hadn't made a mistake in the air since flight school. And he wasn't about to start now. 40 miles. The /APG 63 locked onto the lead MiG, painting it with invisible radar energy. The Sparrow missile seeker head chirped happily, confirming lock. One button press and that Soviet pilot would have 30 seconds to live. But Mitchell didn't press it. Not yet. Not unless they made the first move. 30 miles. The distance where decisions became irreversible. Where warnings turned into weapons. Mitchell's thumb hovered over the radio transmit button. Soviet aircraft approaching NATO airspace. This is United States Air Force. You are ordered to reverse course immediately. Acknowledge. Nothing. Soviet aircraft, acknowledge immediately or you will be engaged. Still nothing. Just the hiss of static and the thunder of his own heartbeat. 20 miles. Visual range. Mitchell squinted through the canopy and saw them, 8 dark specks against the gray clouds, growing larger with every second. Sleek, angular, predatory. MiG-29 Fulcrums, the best the Soviet Air Force had to offer. And they were coming straight at him. Razor, they're locking us up. I've got multiple radar locks. They're going weapons hot. The threat warning receiver screamed in Mitchell's helmet, a high-pitched wail that meant death was looking right at him. The MiGs had activated their fire control radars. They were preparing to shoot. This was it. The moment every fighter pilot trained for and prayed would never come. The moment when the Cold War stopped being a metaphor and became geometry, physics, and blood. Mitchell's voice was ice. Hawkeye, break right on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Break. The sky exploded into chaos. The F-15 Eagle snapped right with violence that would shatter a weaker airframe. 7GS crushed Mitchell into his seat, the anti-G suit inflating around his legs and abdomen, forcing blood back to his brain. Gray tunneled at the edges of his vision, but his eyes never left the radar screen. The MiGs scattered like wolves closing on wounded prey, splitting into pairs, the classic Soviet two-ship fighting doctrine. 4 sections, 8 aircraft, all turning inside the Eagle's defensive break. They'd done this before. They knew the playbook. But so did Mitchell. Hawkeye, status. Defending. I've got 2 on my 6, another pair at 3 o'clock high. Brennan's breathing was rapid but controlled, the sound of a man fighting for his life and refusing to panic. Mitchell yanked the stick back and stomped the left rudder, throwing the Eagle into a punishing vertical climb. The nose pitched up through the horizon, through vertical, past 90 degrees. The world inverted, sky below, ocean above, physics temporarily suspended. The Pratt & Whitney engines howled, burning fuel at a catastrophic rate, trading range for raw performance. Two MiG-29s tried to follow, their noses tracking upward, pilots hauling back on their sticks. But the F-15 had power to weight on its side, that glorious American excess of thrust that let it climb like a rocket. The MiGs fell behind, their noses dropping as they bled airspeed, unable to sustain the vertical fight. Mitchell snapped inverted at the top of the climb, hanging from his straps, looking down at the two MiGs now below him. From up here, they looked like toys. Dangerous, deadly toys. Bodo control, Eagle lead is engaged. 8 bandits, knives out. We need that backup now. Eagle lead, Viper flight is inbound, 15 minutes. Hold on. 15 minutes. An eternity in a dogfight. Planes moved at miles per second. Decisions happened in fractions of a heartbeat. 15 minutes was time enough to die a dozen times over. Mitchell rolled wings level, inverted, and pulled. The Eagle's nose sliced downward, accelerating in a dive that built speed like an avalanche. The airspeed indicator spun clockwise, 400 knots, 500, 600. The G-meter pegged at 6.5 as he pulled through, converting altitude into position, energy into options. One of the MiGs saw him coming. Too late. Mitchell's thumb found the missile select switch, cycling to Sidewinder. The seeker head growled, then locked with a solid tone as it tasted the infrared signature of the MiG's twin Klimov RD-33 engines burning hot against the cold sky. Fox 2. Mitchell squeezed the trigger. The AIM-9M Sidewinder leaped off the rail with a burst of white smoke and a sound like a giant match striking. The missile accelerated to Mach 2.5 in seconds, its infrared seeker locked on the heat pouring from the MiG's exhausts. The Soviet pilot saw it coming. Mitchell watched the MiG snap into a desperate brake turn, popping flares, brilliant magnesium stars tumbling through the sky. But the AIM-9M was a modern missile, designed to ignore flares. It flew through the decoy cloud and tracked the real heat source. Impact. The Sidewinder's annular blast fragmentation warhead detonated 3 feet behind the MiG's left engine. 25 pounds of high explosive transformed into thousands of tungsten fragments moving at supersonic speed. They shredded the engine, the fuel lines, the hydraulics. The MiG-29 pitched violently left, trailing black smoke and orange flame. Mitchell didn't watch the Soviet pilot eject. He was already reversing, looking for the second MiG. Eagle lead, good kill. But you've got 2 more at your 7 o'clock, closing fast. Hawkeye's voice was strained. Mitchell glanced over his shoulder, an instinctive gesture that every fighter pilot made despite having radar and sensors. There they were, 2 more fulcrums in pursuit, their noses tracking him, growing larger in his mirrors. The threat receiver shrieked again. They were locking him. Hawkeye, where are you? Engaged. Can't help you, Razor. Mitchell slammed the throttles to afterburner. The F-100 engines lit with twin pillars of blue-white flame, visible for miles, a beacon that said, "Here I am, come get me." The Eagle accelerated through 700 knots, then 800. The Mach-meter climbed past 1.0 into supersonic flight. But the MiGs had afterburners too, and they were closing the gap. Missile launch. Mitchell saw the white smoke trail arc away from the lead MiG, a Russian R-27 radar-guided missile, NATO designation AA-10 Alamo. Smaller than the American Sparrow, but just as deadly. It tracked him with electronic precision, adjusting its path with every maneuver he made. No time to think. Only time to react. Mitchell chopped the throttles to idle and yanked the stick into his lap while stomping the rudder. The F-15 departed controlled flight, tumbling through the sky in a maneuver that no aircraft manual recommended and every survival instinct screamed about. The missile, expecting a predictable target, flew past him, missing by less than 50 feet. Mitchell felt the shock wave ripple through his airframe. But the maneuver cost him. Airspeed bled away. Altitude dropped. And the two MiGs behind him weren't giving up. The lead fulcrum pilot was good, very good. He didn't overshoot, didn't rush. He pulled his nose up smoothly, floating into firing position like a predator that knew patience brought kills. His radar locked Mitchell's Eagle. His finger moved toward the trigger. Then Hawkeye saved his life. Brake left, Razor. Now. Mitchell broke without question, without thought, trusting his wingman's eyes. The F-15 snapped left just as a second MiG appeared from below, climbing vertically, guns blazing. Tracers, 30mm cannon fire, cut through the space where Mitchell had been half a second before. The rounds would have torn his Eagle apart. But Hawkeye had seen the trap and called it in time. And now Hawkeye was making his own move. The second Eagle appeared above the climbing MiG, inverted, pulling down in a high yo-yo maneuver that gave him perfect position. The Soviet pilot realized his mistake too late, trying to roll away, but Hawkeye was already there. Fox 2. Another sidewinder. Another smoke trail. Another MiG. This time the missile struck the Fulcrum's right engine. The explosion was catastrophic. The engine disintegrated, fragments shredding the adjacent fuel tank. The MiG-29 transformed from aircraft to fireball in less than a second. The canopy blew away, the ejection seat fired, and a parachute blossomed white against the gray clouds. 2 down. 6 to go. Mitchell pulled back into the fight, scanning for targets, his heart hammering, his mouth dry. The radio was chaos now. Overlapping calls, warnings, curses in English and Russian. Somewhere above, the remaining 6 MiGs were regrouping, reassessing, realizing that the 2 American Eagles weren't easy prey. Razor, fuel state? Mitchell checked his gauge. The afterburner sprints, the high G maneuvers, the vertical climbs, all of it burned fuel at an obscene rate. 8,000 pounds. We've got maybe 10 minutes of fighting fuel left, then we're running for the tanker. Same here. These bastards are trying to bleed us dry. Smart. The Soviets knew they couldn't win a clean fight, so they were trying to force the Eagles into a fuel crisis. Make them run for a tanker or ditch in the freezing Norwegian Sea. Either way, mission accomplished. But Mitchell had no intention of giving them that satisfaction. Eagle lead to Bodo control. Where the hell is my backup? Eagle lead. Viper flight is 10 minutes out. Also be advised, we're detecting additional Soviet aircraft launching from Severomorsk. Looks like they're doubling down. Of course they were. The Soviets had just lost 2 fighters to 2 Americans. That was unacceptable. That was embarrassing. They would send everything they had to change the narrative. Mitchell keyed his radio to the emergency frequency, the one monitored by all military aircraft in the region, NATO and Soviet alike. Soviet aircraft, this is United States Air Force Eagle lead. You have lost 2 aircraft. We do not want further bloodshed. Break off your attack and return to base. Acknowledge. Silence. Then, in heavily accented English, American pilot. You are in our airspace now. You will leave, or you will die. This is only warning. Mitchell looked at his navigation display. The furball, the tangled mess of maneuvering aircraft, had drifted northeast during the fight. They were now 60 miles off the Norwegian coast, in international airspace but closer to Soviet territory than friendly. Technically, both sides were legal. Technically, this was just a training exercise with live missiles. Technically, World War III could start in the next 30 seconds. Mitchell's thumb hovered over the radio transmit button. Then he saw them, 4 more radar contacts, inbound from the east. The Soviet reinforcements. And behind his own aircraft, still 8 minutes away, 4 F-16s from the Norwegian Air Force. The sky was filling with fighters. The equation was shifting. And someone, on one side or the other, was going to make a mistake. Hawkeye, we're about to get swarmed. You ready for round 2? Born ready, boss. But Razor. Yeah. If we don't make it out of this, tell my Wi-Fi. Shut up. You'll tell her yourself. Now let's finish this. The remaining 6 MiGs dove out of the clouds like raptors, afterburners blazing, all pretense of caution abandoned. They were coming for blood. And this time, they weren't going to stop until someone was dead. The merge happened at 600 knots with less than 2 miles of separation. 10 fighters compressed into a cube of sky 3 miles on each side, all of them turning, burning, trying to get position before the other guy. Physics and instinct and training colliding at supersonic speed. Mitchell saw the first MiG flash past his canopy, close enough to see the red star painted on its fuselage, close enough to see the Soviet pilot's helmet turn, tracking him. Then the fulcrum was gone, disappearing into a vertical climb that turned it from aircraft to accelerating in half a heartbeat. No time to follow. Another MiG was already rolling in from Mitchell's right, nose tracking, closing the angle. Mitchell pulled hard into the threat, trading airspeed for position, forcing the MiG to overshoot or pull even harder to stay in the fight. The G-forces crushed him into his seat. 6, 7, 8 Gs. His vision graying at the edges despite the anti-G suit squeezing his legs until they felt like they'd break. The MiG pilot tried to stay with him, pulling his nose around, but the F-15's energy advantage, that beautiful excess of American power, let Mitchell sustain the turn without bleeding speed. The Soviet pilot had to ease his pull to avoid stalling. A half-second of advantage, but in a dogfight, half a second was the difference between living and dying. Mitchell snapped the stick right, then back left, a high-frequency scissors maneuver designed to break the MiG's tracking solution. The Eagle rolled knife edge, then inverted, then right side up again, all in 3 seconds. The MiG tried to follow but fell behind, unable to match the F-15's roll rate. Razor, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. Hawkeye's voice was pure adrenaline now, discipline fraying at the edges. Mitchell whipped his head left and saw it, a missile trail, white smoke cutting through the sky, tracking toward him from the merge. Not an R-27. Something smaller. An R-73 Archer, the Soviets' best short-range heat-seeker, fired from a MiG he hadn't even seen. No time to defeat it with maneuvers. The missile was too close, maybe 5 seconds from impact. Mitchell jabbed the chaff/flare button. The F-15 belched flares from dispensers mounted in its tail, brilliant white-hot magnesium stars that burned at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The R-73's seeker head saw the flares, hesitated for a microsecond as it tried to decide which heat source was real. Mitchell broke hard away from the flares, unloading the aircraft to gain speed, putting distance between himself and the decoys. The missile tracked the flares, or so he thought, but then adjusted, reacquiring his exhaust. Shit! Still tracking. The R-73 closed to 1,000 feet. 500. Mitchell pulled straight up into a vertical climb, afterburners blazing, trying to outrun physics itself. The missile followed, relentless, its solid rocket motor pushing it to Mach 2.5. 200 feet. 100. Then, a thunderclap. The missile detonated just behind and below Mitchell's Eagle, close enough that shrapnel peppered the aircraft's underside. Alarms shrieked. The master caution light blazed red. Mitchell felt the airframe shudder, felt the controls go mushy. Razor, you're hit. You're hit. I see smoke. Mitchell checked his instruments. Right engine fire light. Hydraulic pressure dropping in System A. Flight controls were degraded but responding. The Eagle could fly on one engine, had been designed to survive battle damage. But it was wounded now, slower, less agile. In a fight like this, that might as well be a death sentence. I'm still flying. Stay on task, Hawkeye. But even as he said it, Mitchell knew he was in trouble. The MiGs sensed weakness like sharks tasting blood in the water. Two of them broke off from Hawkeye and turned toward Mitchell, vectoring for an easy kill. Mitchell firewalled the good engine and pointed the nose down, trading what little altitude he had left for speed. The Eagle dove through 20,000 feet, through 15,000, accelerating back through 500 knots. The two MiGs dove after him, matching his descent, closing the range. The lead MiG fired. Another R-73. This time Mitchell didn't have the energy to defend properly. He popped flares and pulled, but the wounded Eagle couldn't sustain the turn. The missile tracked through the flares, adjusting, closing. And then a miracle. Fox 3. Fox 3. Hawkeye's voice, triumphant. An AIM-7 Sparrow lanced through the sky from above, fired by Hawkeye, who'd climbed out of his own engagement to save his wingman. The radar-guided missile tracked the lead MiG with electronic precision. The Soviet pilot saw it coming, broke left, popped chaff, but the Sparrow was already inside minimum range. No time to evade. The missile struck the MiG-29 just behind the cockpit. The warhead detonated, a shaped charge that punched through the airframe and exploded inside. The fulcrum came apart in midair, pieces tumbling through the sky in a cloud of debris and flame. No ejection. No parachute. Just death at 15,000 feet. The second MiG on Mitchell's tail broke off immediately, spooked by seeing his wingman disintegrate. He rolled away, diving for the deck, trying to disengage. "Razor, you okay?" Mitchell checked his gauges. Engine fire out. Probably burned through the fuel lines and then starved itself. One engine remaining. Hydraulics holding. Flight controls sluggish but functional. "I'll make it. Thanks for the save. Buy me a beer when we land." "Brother, I'll buy you a brewery." The remaining four MiGs were regrouping 3 miles north, circling, reassessing. They'd lost 3 aircraft now. 3 pilots, 2 ejected and floating down to the freezing Norwegian Sea, where they'd have maybe 20 minutes before hypothermia killed them, 1 dead. Against the Eagle's reputation of never losing an air-to-air fight, the Soviets were adding another tally to the American column. But they weren't giving up. Not yet. Eagle lead. Viper flight is 5 minutes out. Hold on just a little longer. Copy. Bodo. We'll hold. Mitchell checked his fuel. 4,000 pounds. Enough for maybe 5 more minutes of combat, then he'd have to brake for the tanker or risk flaming out over the ocean. Hawkeye was probably in the same boat. The 4 MiGs finished their circle and turned back, all 4 coming at once, a coordinated attack from multiple angles designed to overwhelm. They'd learned their lesson about coming in piecemeal. This time they were playing for keeps. "Hawkeye, they're coming in heavy. Split vertical on my mark. Razor, you're on 1 engine. You can't go vertical. Watch me." Mitchell pointed the Eagle's nose at the sky and shoved the throttle to maximum. The single remaining F-100 engine screamed, spooling up to full military power, 23,000 pounds of thrust fighting gravity and a damaged airframe. The F-15 climbed, slower than before, less assured, but still climbing. The MiG split. 2 went high after Mitchell, 2 stayed low hunting for Hawkeye. The trap was set. If Mitchell climbed, he'd bleed all his speed and become an easy target. If he leveled off, the MiGs would bracket him with missiles. There was no good move. So Mitchell made a bad move work. At 18,000 feet, just as his airspeed bled below 300 knots, Mitchell snap-rolled the Eagle inverted and pulled. Not a standard maneuver. Not something you do in a healthy aircraft. But with 1 engine and battle damage, pulling inverted actually helped. He used gravity to assist the turn instead of fighting it. The 2 MiGs tracking him were caught off guard. They'd expected him to try to sustain the climb or roll away. They hadn't expected him to pull into them, inverted, using gravity as a weapon. Mitchell floated through the top of the maneuver, looking up or down, depending on perspective, at the 2 MiGs now in front of him, only a mile away. His radar locked the trail aircraft. The Sparrow on his left wing chirped lock. Fox 1. The AIM-7 dropped off the rail, ignited, and accelerated. The Soviet pilot saw it coming, tried to brake, but he was already too close, too slow in his own climb. The Sparrow tracked him perfectly, guided by the Eagle's radar, and detonated 10 feet from the MiG's cockpit. The explosion shredded the canopy, the instruments, the pilot. The MiG-29 tumbled out of control, a dead aircraft piloted by a dead man, falling toward the ocean below. 4 down. 3 to go. But Mitchell's maneuver had cost him. He was slow, low on energy, wounded. The second MiG that had been tracking him was now reversing, coming back around for another pass. And below, Hawkeye was fighting for his life against 2 Fulcrums who'd coordinated a bracket attack, one high, one low. "Razor, I need help. I'm defensive." Mitchell tried to push the nose down, tried to build speed for another engagement, but the Eagle was sluggish, damaged, bleeding. He watched on his radar as one of the MiGs below locked Hawkeye, watched the missile symbol appear on his display. "Hawkeye, brake right." Missile in the air. Brennan's F-15 snapped into a punishing turn, flares and chaff spilling from its tail, but the Russian pilot had fired at close range, inside the envelope where the missile was almost impossible to defeat. The R-27 tracked Hawkeye's Eagle with ruthless precision. Impact. Mitchell saw the explosion from 3 miles away, a flash of orange, a spray of debris, a tumbling mass that had been an aircraft and was now just wreckage. "Hawkeye, talk to me. Hawkeye." Static. Then, faint, strained, "I'm hit bad, controls are, can't, ejecting." Mitchell saw the canopy blow off Hawkeye's Eagle, saw the ejection seat fire, saw the parachute deploy. Brennan was alive. But his F-15 was dead, tumbling toward the ocean in a death spiral. And Mitchell was alone now. 1 wounded Eagle against 3 Fulcrums with backup still 3 minutes away. The Soviet pilots knew it too. They were already turning toward him, converging, moving in for the kill. Mitchell's hands tightened on the stick. His jaw set. His eyes narrowed. The F-15 had never lost in air-to-air combat. And he'd be damned if he'd be the first.